Fat is bad for you.
I just pop a pill and I'm fine.
Meat is murder. It's time for bad food punishment. It's time for real nourishment. It's time for the nutrition heretic.
The following program is provided as information only and may not be construed as medical or health advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the basis of the information provided here. Please consult with a licensed healthcare professional or doctor on any matter relating to your health and well-being.
I'm going to introduce Sandi Radomski. She's one of my mentors. She runs the website allergyantidotes.com, and she's going to tell us a little bit. I want to talk about allergy because one of the things that's been happening to me is I think I might be allergic to my husband. He was based on the mainland. He's now based here, although he's on the mainland right now, and since October, it seems like every time he comes to visit, I break out in a rash. And I'm not sure what that's about.
That's a big problem.
Yeah. So, is it in my head?
Well, people do get allergic to people in their family. They get allergic to their husbands, their kids, their siblings, all kinds of things. And I don't know. Here's my definition of allergy, which is really kind of different than the traditional medical definition. The medical definition about allergy is talking about a whole histamine reaction and all of that kind of thing. And my definition, actually, for years I used the definition of Doris Rapp, Dr. Doris Rapp, who is a head pediatric allergist, very famous doctor. And she says an allergy is a reaction to a food or a drug or something in your environment that does not cause a problem to other people. Mm-hmm. And so she's not talking about a histamine reaction necessarily. And then actually what I've taken it is even further. I believe an allergy is a mistake of the immune system based on trauma. So for me, allergies are learned. So if there's some kind of thing you're exposed to, when you are stressed, in trauma, some kind of upset, your body can get some learning that isn't really good learning. It can learn to connect up that trauma with whatever you're exposed to. It can be a food, a smell, a color, a person. And somehow whenever you're around that smell, food, taste, that person, your body says, oh, I have to protect myself. I have to protect myself. And the only way a body knows how to protect themselves is with an inflammatory reaction. Mm-hmm. So our inflammatory reactions cause the skin eruptions, causes congestion, causes your eyes to run, causes your nose to run, causes stomach ache, causes brain fog. That's all your body is trying to say, go away, it's dangerous, you're dangerous. So I don't know. I'd have to muscle test and do some other stuff to see if you actually have gotten trauma associated with your husband.
Interesting. Okay. So when you, in your allergy antidotes, because you do a few different modalities. Sure. And I know you've got allergy antidotes and you've got Ask and Receive, which is newer. It's not really new anymore, but it's newer. How do you differentiate those two? Like I think people want to know, when you say muscle test, like not a lot of people out there understand completely what that means, for example.
Well, I do a lot of work with applied kinesiology muscle testing, where I am using a person's body as an indicator of if something's good for them or not. So if you put your arm out and I press on your arm and you say something that's true, your arm will stay strong. If you say something that's not true, your arm will weaken. Now, I know that sounds really strange, but it's actually a physiological response.
Okay.
Your body cannot hold as much pressure for as much time if you're saying something that's not true, or you're holding or touching something that's not good for you. Mm-hmm. This is actually was used in the Second World War as a way to interrogate spies because they could not hold as much weight for as long amount of time if they were telling a lie.
So that was the, what do they call it? The original polygraph.
The original polygraph. And whenever I talk about this at a class, people say, "Can I do that with my teenager?"
Hey, that's a great idea. I have somebody about to turn teenager.
Right. So, well, you can really fight pretty hard. But they were doing in the Second World War, it was a kind of different, kind of thing. But so I do a lot. That's how I find out if someone is aligned with a substance, aligned with what they want, a positive statement, or what they, a statement of what they want. I'm always checking to see if they're in alignment with the substance or the statement. And if they're not in alignment, I'm assuming that the body has, and it's something they really want, the body has something blocking it. And it's usually a trauma that's blocking it. Mm-hmm. And then what I do in my work, so the allergy antidotes, I started that in, I think, 1999. I started with that website and started teaching. And that was all about substances. In the beginning, it was all about substances. And I use many different techniques in order to give your body new information. Because if allergies are learned, that means they can be unlearned. So if you learn that, something terrible happened at the kitchen table when you were eating a certain kind of food, and you hook that up and you could never eat that food again, that learning needs to be unlocked, unhooked, because it doesn't make any sense anymore. There's no reason that food is causing you a problem. So we can unlearn it. And the way you unlearn it is to give the body new experience, that it can be relaxed and calm and peaceful in the presence of that substance.
Right.
You can relax and calm in the presence of your husband and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So, okay.
So my whole job is to get you into that new learning situation, that relaxed state. And we, in my beginning manuals, I have all kinds of different techniques that I use, but I probably have come down to three main ways that I balance the body in relationship to the substance. One is called spinal release, which is tapping on different acupuncture points. It's kind of similar to the tapping from EFT, emotional freedom technique, which I'm sure a lot of people know. And then I use a laser also to laser the reflex points of your ears. And that balances, it's a laser at the exact wavelength of a healthy living cell. And it causes all of those points on your ear to go into vibrating like a healthy cell. And all those reflex points refer to other points of your body. So you're balancing your whole body in relation to that substance you're holding or thinking about. Mm-hmm. Then, more recently, since about 2008, is when I created Ask and Receive, which is my new little baby. I guess it isn't so young anymore. My God, it's 8 years old. But Ask and Receive is now probably the main technique I use to deal with allergies, because essentially 100% of my work is done on the phone or Skype.
Right.
So I don't necessarily have someone in my office that I can tap down their back or laser their ears. So I do most of my work with the Ask and Receive. Mm-hmm. And Ask and Receive is really a way to access your higher state of consciousness to help you learn the new relationship with that food or substance. Right. So Ask and Receive is based on the concept that we all have a higher, broader perspective that knows everything that's happened to us in our lives and knows exactly what we need to do to get what we want. So people who come to see me want to be able to eat certain foods. They want to be comfortable. They don't want to have belly aches anymore. They don't want to have brain fog. They don't want to have runny nose all the time. So their higher self knows how to get there, but they don't always have access to that higher state of consciousness. So there's 5 sentences they repeat of Ask and Receive, and we found that repeating those sentences brings the information from their higher self into their current reality so that they can learn that new relationship with the food.
Okay. So, what you're saying is that with allergy antidotes, you are developing developing a more positive relationship with a particular substance, food, person, etc.
Yes.
By balancing energy points, so what people might think of as acupressure points, while they're holding the substance or thinking about that substance. Is that correct?
That's right. Or else they can hold or think about the substance and do the ask and receive.
Right. And then ask and receive is almost like calling on, is it your soul or whatever that higher intuition almost?
Yeah, it's like your true self. It's like that inner self. It's like the true self that you were meant to be, the self before you had any traumas, that true self that knows the truth about you and who you are in the world. And we don't usually use the word soul or, so it's interesting because I work with people some who are very spiritual, some very religious, some who are atheists, and everybody seems to be able to relate to this higher part of themselves without necessarily having a spiritual or religious connotation about it.
Right. So it's almost the it's your higher self. I mean, there's sometimes there's just not a better word for it.
But I was fascinated with your conversation that you were having because there was a time, in the probably early 2000s when my caseload was 100% autistic children.
Right.
And it really is hard seeing. It breaks your heart to see what's happened to some of these children and the desperation. So I really agree with you that people need to be doing more research, more into, thinking outside of the box for things.
Right.
So, because it was devastating. These kids who were, at 3 years old, reading, one was called, I remember, the little professor. They called him the little professor. He was so smart. And he had one vaccination. Now, this is a one person. I know the studies have shown it's not from vaccination. But in this one case, had the vaccination, had, high fever, infection, ear infection right after that, and has never gotten his speech back. And this was, another 4 years later. And, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah. And I mean, I see that all the time. They're saying that it's not the vaccination, but damn if it doesn't show up the day after,
It's really interesting,
But I personally don't think that vaccine is the main cause. I think it is the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I think it's the last nail in the coffin. I think that it is that the underlying issues go back to gut issues, to some extent, for lack of a better description, karma. Unfortunately, that is brought over from wherever. It could be through the family lineage, but there is definitely a weakness there to begin with. That really makes everyone susceptible in our society today, because especially in America, how many people do you really know with good gut bacteria? And I mean, a good way to know that is, are there the bags under the eyes? Are there the ears that stick out? The rashes? Just all the different manifestations that would indicate, the bowel problems, the digestive, the fussiness about eating. These are all very potent indicators that the gut is not ready to hand, that there's a lot of work that should be done before we start vaccinating these children. And to monologue a bit, just yesterday somebody posted something about think it was a family that was trying to cure actually, I posted it on my page, a family that was trying to cure their child of meningitis with some supplements. And it was very similar to this bleach thing where they were using some supplements. And I think the supplements weren't toxic, but it wasn't getting to the bottom of the meningitis. And and so they had opted for this over their getting the kid a shot, and the person said, well, people, you have to learn, you just have to go and vaccinate your child. And I said, you know what, if the child's immune system wasn't strong enough for the meningitis, it wasn't strong enough to be vaccinated.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand, is that the things that we're supposed to accept as normal, they're not normal, and they weren't normal 100 years ago.
The trick is to, can we express concern and deal with the people who are trying to exploit the, parents and families who are dealing with this kind of thing, without judging them.
Right. Well, sorry, but the use of the word exploit is actually very interesting, because people like Sandi and I, we probably have people thinking that we're exploiting people, and we're not doing anything. Like people who don't understand what we do think that we're quacks. That we're exploiting people because we're heretics, aren't we, Sandi?
Well, we are doing things outside of the box, but what's important, and I know it's how I work, and I'm sure that's how you work, is we base our things on do no harm.
Exactly. This is exactly
we're doing
it.
Is doing no harm. People are coming of their free will, and people only stay as long as they're seeing, differences and progress and changes. And no one's saying, you have to do this for 2 years and then you'll see if something changes. I mean, right. We're not doing that kind of thing. We're saying, here I am. I'm seeing, according to my looking at things, this may be an issue, and let's see. I mean, I always look at this as let's see what we can do, right. And if we can make some changes, and we work together as a team. And, because people come to me with all kinds of vague symptoms that doctors, have not been able to diagnose, have not been able to treat, and they've been having for years. And it's really my belief that a lot of those vague kind of symptoms, and even more stronger than that, but untreatable symptoms, have a lot to do with what you're eating, smelling, or touching. Adrian, you're saying you're smart enough to see there was a connection to when your husband shows up and you're getting a rash. I mean, the first thing, we'd start talking about, does he have a new cologne or shampoo or body wash, or, did something change? Is there something that he's eating differently that's coming out through his skin?
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that, because I made him take therapeutic baths a few times, and that seemed to help a bit, but getting him to get in that bath more than like once, because he's got to sit there for, half an hour to make it effective.
What would be even easier is if we can change your body so your body is no longer seeing anything that's on his body as being a problem.
Right.
Because, he's not having the problem.
This is true.
He might be enjoying his new shampoo or his new or whatever he's using.
I think it's radiation from the plane.
Oh, how interesting.
Or something in San Francisco. There's something that I think he's bringing off of that plane physically.
And that could be, and then you could really be helping him.
Yes, that's just it. It doesn't hurt to detoxify him of all that.
Detox at all. But what I've been doing now, and you've worked with me years and years ago where I muscle test all these different things, and I've actually got this new cool program that I'm just loving. That I normally have these hour visits. People come, and I kind of do more in real individual work just around their issue. And I'm now doing a half an hour targeted muscle testing session. When people sign up for that, they fill out a form of all the 30 foods, 30 supplements that they want me to test. Plus, I have my top 20 nutrients that I think are really important. I've found to be important over the last 20 years I've been doing this. And I'm loving doing this because I'm able to give people a real overview of what things might be affecting them. And then along with it comes, they get, some of the tools, my manual and some of my how to do ask and receive for sensitivity. So if they want to go and, see if they can give their body new learning on their own, they're able to do that. But what I'm just loving having this very, very focused time with people. And there's actually new findings that I had never really seen before that I'm loving. One of the first things I test people for is water. Isn't that amazing to test people for water?
Yeah.
And water, we're made up of 70% water when we're adults, but we were 90% water at birth and we were 99% water at conception. So any kind of trauma that happens in any time in conception through gestation, birth, the first few years of life, you are doing it in the presence of water. It's very easy and common for any trauma to be associated with water. Mm-hmm. You're surrounded with water, and this awful thing happens. You got the cord around your neck. You have a breach. You're stuck in the birth canal for 3 days. These are the kind of those are the kind of people that I see. Because I muscle test to see, when we're treating for water, I muscle test to see if there's a trauma connected with the water. And most often it's from early conception, gestation, or birth. That's the most common thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's their only experience with life, is this terrible trauma that happens. And that trauma happened in the presence of water. So I always test people for water. And I'm finding that almost 100% of the people that I'm doing these half-hour sessions with have a problem with water. Mm-hmm. And these are people who all have these kind of vague symptoms, and some of them not so vague. They have diabetes, or they have, some autoimmune disease and Hashimoto's or things like that. But it's really common to have a problem with water. Now, here's the issue when you have a weakness, a muscle test weakness, or you're weak, you're having a problem with one of these nutrients, these substances, is that if you're weak on water, if your body sees water as kind of dangerous, that it weakens in the presence of water, mm-hmm. it's not going to absorb it. And if you don't absorb it, it's not going to be used properly in the body. Right. So, I get people who are either drinking all the time and are still thirsty, or hate to drink. And once we clear them up with the water, they're able to really utilize the water, because if you're not having enough water, your body's not going to work.
Right.
And so many people are drinking all the water, but it's not really going in. It's really cool.
And would they know that because they're just peeing way too much and it's just going straight out and it's not actually being used by the body?
I think it shows itself differently in different people.
Okay.
Because I know I get people who say, I can't stand the thought of water. It makes me nauseous to think of drinking water. And the other one's saying, I can't stop drinking water. Mm-hmm. And they've got their big gallons they're drinking all the time. And yet, if you, there's a muscle test that you can do. You sort of pull on their hair and you muscle test. I mean, sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's a test for dehydration, and they're dehydrated.
Wow.
They're dehydrated. And they're the people who, if they're doing too much, they end up needing more. They end up in the emergency room dehydrated, and yet they've been drinking, but it's not being absorbed.
Yeah, and I see that all the time too. I see people who are just, they think they've just got to drink more, and sometimes the body just becomes overwhelmed.
What I'm seeing is the body is really trying to do what it does best. Right. It's trying to protect you. But if it associates water with a huge trauma,
right,
then it's going to do everything to keep water out of your cells.
Well, I told you about my flooding incidents. Uh-huh. that in 6 years I had a house that flooded no less than 10 times. There might be some sensitivity there to water.
There might be some sensitivity to water. And I am just finding it with most people. And another one that I'm fascinated with is almost everyone is reacted to sulfur. And what I find with sulfur is you really need that nutrient to detox properly.
Exactly.
And we're doing all this stuff to detox, and we're taking MSM, and we're taking all this stuff. If your body thinks sulfur is dangerous, it pushes it away. It says to the sulfur, I'm going to kill you before you kill me.
Right.
And it puts out an immune system inflammatory reaction. And then what you're getting as your symptom is that inflammatory reaction. Because the bloating, the brain fog, the congestion, the runny nose, that's all inflammation.
Right.
So that's your immune system trying to fight off these things. But it's often fighting off things that aren't very good for you.
But when you go through, now that's those two items, when you talk about that I would, knowing your work, that is more from the allergy antidotes side versus the ask and receive, correct? Because ask and receive, you don't necessarily need to know what the actual trigger is. Isn't it more that you need to get your body to agree to basically just be harmonious with the world?
Well, actually, that's not how I use ask and receive.
Okay.
I use ask and receive as the treatment for what I find with my allergy antidotes.
I see. Oh, okay. So
because
I think it was a little bit different when you were when you had originally written the book.
Well, there's a couple of different ways to do ask and receive. There's a simple ask and receive, which is just in general, where you're just asking, I'll just say the statement. There's a part of my being that already knows how to heal and release all traumas associated with water. Mm-hmm. And that part of my being is willing to inform the rest of me now. It's doing so now with grace and ease. My mind, body, and spirit are receiving this information. Information transfer is now complete. That's like what we call simple, because we're not finding the exact trauma. We're not finding the exact issue that's going on, the exact limiting belief that's going on. Mm-hmm. But when I work with people individually, I would test somebody for being okay with water, and if they're not, I check to see if there's a trauma, and then I muscle test to see the age of the trauma. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's often about around birth and gestation, conception, all those kind of things. And then I find out what was going on at that time. And you kind of laughed with these, the scenario I gave about being stuck in the birth canal, but it's amazing, some of the amazing traumas that I hear about when you'd never have been talking about those at all.
Right.
I actually did some similar to this. I did a half an hour thing where people would we would test them for if they're okay with money, and if it's safe to have money, if they deserve to have money, if it's possible to have money. They can have more money than their family. I mean, see if they're congruent with those statements. Right. I mean, we're talking about money.
Exactly.
How far away from some of these birth things can you be? And out of the first 20 people I worked with, the first 17 went back to a birth issue. I thought, my God, that's amazing. So then I was working with them individually, and of those, 10 of those were life-threatening birth traumas.
Yikes.
Seriously, out of 10 people, 2 of them, the doctor had asked the father, should I save the mother or the baby?
Oh, geez.
Can you imagine? And, like breech, cord around the neck, breech birth. And it's seriously stuck in the birth canal 3 days up in the mountains in a clinic in some third world country where there was no way to have a C-section. Right. Those kind of life-threatening. So 50% of the people who came to me for money issues had a problem, a life-threatening problem at birth, which informed their life about what was safe and what they deserved and what was possible.
Right.
So then I use ask and receive to clear that up. So I'm clearing up things with substances, but also with, statements of people's goals, what they want in their life.
Right. Okay.
And so, when you worked with me, it was more of the lasers and the tapping down the back, the spinal release and all that. And now it's just that I've added Ask and Receive as another treatment for what I found in the allergy antidotes work.
And you teach people how to do these methods themselves, that they can work on themselves outside of your their visits with you.
Yes, one of the things that I'm doing with this half-an-hour session is I'm also giving them included is one of my original manual that tells you all about everything, the conceptual framework, the techniques, how to do it. I've got videos about how to do your own muscle testing on yourself that they're getting, and they're getting the Ask and Receive for Sensitivities protocol of what to say to do it. So I really want to help as many people as possible. And I believe that once I came up with the Ask and Receive, it's something that's more accessible to more people. So my goal is for people to be able to do a lot of the allergy treatment on their own, either with the Ask and Receive, the laser, or the spinal release. And if they have some difficult ones where they really need to find out the originating trauma that started the allergy in the beginning, then they can work with me or someone else individually.
Right.
So
that's fantastic. So one of the things that I've noticed, particularly in energy medicine circles and doing the similar work to what you do, is that people often think that it's a license to not change their diet. How do you feel about that?
Well,
what role do you feel that diet plays in all of this?
I think diet is hugely important. I mean, I am such a Nazi about wheat. It's crazy.
And you're Jewish.
That's right. I'm Jewish. I'm a Jewish Nazi about wheat. But people want to be able to eat all the wheat and gluten that they want. And it's like, say, I don't even treat people for that, because I say, I don't believe you should be eating it. So I'm kind of a, in the process of working with people, I want them to have a healthy diet while they're, changing energetically how they are with the different foods. I'm not working necessarily. People may come in saying they want to be able to eat this sugar and this crazy fast food and all that, and I steer them first to deal with those big nutrients of the water, the sulfur, the magnesium, the essential fatty acids, because those are the healthy nutrients they need to have their body function properly.
Right.
So my focus is on all of that. And, I certainly talk about, eating a good diet is really, really important.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that a lot of people seem to think they can skip that, or they take a very unhealthy view of health, which unfortunately a lot of people do, which is, I'm just going to give up, all dairy and all animals and all this and all that. And it's like, but, most of us are just not getting enough nutrients. It's not, even, we're not even consuming nutrient dense food. So don't give up the most nutrient dense foods.
And one of the things that when you're saying about people, sort of giving up reality-based things, now I have a whole program called Sandi Simple Solutions, which is about weight loss.
Oh.
I used to have this thing, people would come to me at that time for more the tapping, the EFT for weight loss. And they'd say, well, I want to just do tapping. I don't want to change what I'm eating. And I'm saying that isn't going to work. The tapping or the Ask and Receive is to help you be able to stay on your diet plan, on the healthy eating plan.
Right.
You cannot keep eating all the junk you're eating and still lose weight. You can't do it.
Right. Yeah, you can't. You're just not infusing your body with the tools that it needs to make the energy flow.
But that is what I've had more than one person. Many people think that that's what they could do if you just tapped enough, they could change, their weight. So.
Yeah, I see that all the time, and to some extent that could happen. But again, if you're not putting in things that your body doesn't see as an enemy, then I'm not gonna. It's almost ridiculous to try and tap in and the ability for somebody to consume, arsenic. Let's just say, as an example.
Yeah. So we're not.
Do you want to just eat more arsenic?
Arsenic, but But things like I'm working with people whose bodies push away vitamin C.
Exactly.
Well, if you're going to push away vitamin C, your immune system's not going to work very well.
Right.
So you've got to clear those things up so that your body can do the things that it was meant to do.
Right. So can you just give me, before we leave, can you give me one good success story that you've had?
One good success story with the
Either of your
oh, well, there's all kinds of, I'm just trying to think of what's a good one.
What about the one that the guy who actually helped you discover Ask and Receive?
Oh, well, Tom. I mean, that's a good story. So Tom had he had allergies and asthma his whole life. He was so sick as a child that he had to go to a school for asthmatic children. So he was really sick. And then as an adult, he was still taking lots of meds and shots and everything and still suffering. And so he did the NAT, which a lot of people are familiar with, Nambujapad's allergy elimination technique. And it was a year-long program where he went at least once a week, and it took a whole year to go through all the different foods one by one. And then he was okay for a little bit, and then it all came back again. And I think he did it 2 or 3 times where he went back a whole another year.
Oh, no.
And then I showed up. I moved into his community in New Jersey, and he was so excited because he had taken my training and was like, oh, my God, I've got someone to help me. So, he came to see me, but he says, I don't want to just do one substance after another. I want to just reset the reactivity of my immune system to a more appropriate level. Okay. And so I said, that sounds great. So I wrote my immune system, put it on his chest, and I started to muscle test his arm. And I had him say, my immune system knows how to reset its reactivity to a more appropriate level. And his arm went right down. And so we could have said, well, I guess it doesn't know that, blah, blah, blah. But he was leading a little weekly group in higher states of consciousness. And so because of that, I think it was he even said, well, let's see if there's a part of my being that knows that. So then there's a part of my being that knows how to reset the reactivity in my immune system. And it went strong. And once it went strong, we were then able to ask the body what was going on. And what happened is that his body was saying it was afraid to give up its fear. The fear, his body thought his fear was keeping his body safe. And so we need to let his body know. We didn't know any of these sentences of Ask and Receive at that time. So it was more like, well, there's a part of my being that knows that I'm safe giving up my fear. And that part's going to tell the rest of me. And then it's doing so. And then, and we just sort of put these sentences together. And we did this, and all of a sudden one of his symptoms right there and then went away, like his chest congestion or his eyes. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I think it was something like either like runny nose or eyes or something that
going
you
on.
said.
And then the next week we came back and we did it again, and some other things kept going away. These just symptoms kept going away, and I just freaked out, and I could just kind of said, God, this is like Ask and Receive from the Bible. And he says, A&R, that sounds like a good name for that. And I said, well, we have to use it.
Right.
Because his first name starts with an A and mine starts with an R.
Oh, there you go.
So it was like synergistic. But he is fine now. He doesn't take all his big meds. He doesn't take his shots. He is fine.
Wow. And how many years? You wrote that book 8 years ago, so it had to be at least 2 years before then, right?
No, that's what we did. We wrote the book later than 2008, but we started doing it in 2008.
Oh, you started doing it in 2008. Okay.
Yeah, we started in 2008.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it didn't come back. All those things when he had done the NAAT had come back. And it has not come back. He's fine, and he's been through stresses. And
does he have to maintain it? Does he do little like tune-ups to make sure that it's all flowing?
I don't think so. But it's talk about tune-ups. He has a really interesting thing. We have it someplace on our website. He decided in New Jersey there were lots of bugs, and he hates bugs. And he'd try to open his pool, and bugs would be biting him. He couldn't stand it. So he did an ask and receive that bugs no longer saw him as, a likely candidate. The bugs didn't like him anymore. Bugs ignored him and all that. And the bugs totally ignored him.
That's so funny.
But the only thing about the bug protocol, he says he has to do it one time every year, every season. He has to do it once.
Okay.
And then he's fine for the whole season. And he sits there and he says he watches all the bugs are flying around the other people and no one's bugs are going to him. So
that's hysterical.
I don't think he does tune-ups in terms of his allergies. But you know what? He just says he's fine. And, when we teach together and everything, he's not having all kinds of symptoms that he used to. He used to be sick all the time.
That's insane. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I think I'm gonna book an appointment with you, Sandi, to get to the bottom of this thing with this rash that comes and goes, and I don't know what's attached to it, but it does seem that it gets worse when my husband's here. Let's just say.
Well, that'll be fun to work with. I'll be looking forward to that.
I think I've got some bundled energy that needs to move through me. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, it's not moving out of the conventional pathways, and so it's choosing my skin.
Well, the skin is the largest detox organ in your body, and if it can't go out other ways, it's going to come out that way.
Yeah.
Can I just add one observation to this thing about Tom and the bugs? That's interesting, and it speaks to the whole mind over matter perception, just how powerful the brain is. I shouldn't even say the brain. I should say the mind when it comes to this kind of stuff. I worked at a radio station where every summer we would tell people that we had this special tone that was inaudible to humans that we broadcast on our radio frequency, which was which mosquitoes couldn't stand. It chased off mosquitoes, and people would send us emails every year or phone us and tell us how wonderful the bug tone worked. It's fantastic. There's only one problem with that. There was no bug tone. We made it all up. I even went to the trouble of creating a whole persona for the scientist who invented the bug tone, and he was just one of our engineers, and I showed him at work in his laboratory, which was actually, one of our remote transmitter control units. But it's amazing. I mean, people believed it worked. People believed that there was sound technology behind it. And so it appeared to make a difference for them. Now,
well, placebo works.
Yeah, no, and I'm not trying to be
it does.
Critical or pessimistic or anything, but it's amazing how if you give people a reason to believe in something like that, they will notice a difference. Whether or not there is any difference, whether or not Tom is any less attractive to bugs, we really don't know. We take Tom's word for it. But if Tom feels he is, and he's not coming in every day scratching like a chihuahua, then I would say mission accomplished.
Well, my belief is, placebo heals about 33 1/3% of things. It's about a 1/3. If someone has a belief system, and the placebo works about that much. When you have a drug that's being tested, if it improves things 33 1/3%, 1/3, they consider it a fantastic miracle new drug. If we can harness placebo, man, I'm excited about it, And so I think it would be great if we could harness placebo, because if people are better, and I don't care how they get better. I just want them better. I want them to have a quality life. I want them to be happy and not be struggling with all these, physical and emotional issues.
So before we wrap up, what's your success rate?
What's my success rate?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never given it a number. I've never given a number except that, boy, I tell you,
when I took classes, when I took the certification course with you, I would say that probably, I think everybody went back better than they came in.
It feels like when people come to me, I had this doctor I worked with for 6 years in his office, alternative. Well, he was a regular MD, but a little alternative. And then I haven't been there for a while. And he sends people to me, and what he tells people is when the doctors can't figure out what's wrong, has tried every test. Then you send them to Sandi, and then we figure out something, and we work together, and it's teamwork, and we figure it out. And most people are really happy with it. I don't have a number, and it's not that everyone's 100% better, but people get better. They're always better in some way.
You're right. They improve. And that's like with me, I cannot make blanket guarantees that you're going to completely cure your candida or your food allergies or what have you. But every single one of them leaves with just a state of health that they didn't even know existed.
Exactly.
I think it says more positive about Sandi that she's not trying to cite a figure than anything else.
No, seriously, people will. We've seen
because I
make
don't
that
know.
up on the fly.
I'm sure no one sits there and actually does a study of themselves. So, and it's like I said, it's a teamwork. It's really interesting to watch, it evolve, and then people start coming up with things that they would never have thought of before. Work together.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. So you do have a new book coming out soon?
We do have a new book coming out soon. It's called Let Money In. It's helping people with issues around money, because I really believe that, on a metaphorical level, we can be allergic to money because we push money away and we push prosperity and success away. We all know people who have all these possibilities or even money coming in, and as soon as the money comes in, something happens and it goes back out again.
Yep.
That they end up at the same level of poverty or close to poverty. That their old traumas and limiting beliefs that they got from very young, that is stopping them from having the life of abundance that they should have. Right. So that's coming out soon.
Very cool. Well, I'll definitely have you back on to talk about that when you when it releases. So please do keep in touch with me. This has been Adrienne Hugh and Jim Ducharme with Sandi Radomski of AllergyAntidotes.com. You can find her link on our website, or link to her site on our website, nutritionheretic.com.
The Nutrition Heretic Podcast is a production of Savor the Journey, LLC. Our audio editor is Nikola Popovich. Our podcast manager is Crystal McLean, and our operations manager is Linda Hansen. I'm your host, Adrienne Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic. You can find us at nutritionheretic.com, where you can download the Nutrition Heretic's free shit list of 7 health foods to avoid like the plague. You can also listen to previous episodes at nutritionheretic.com/podcast. Be sure to like us on social media for updates. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/nutritionheretic and on Twitter @NutriHeretic. Contact us with show ideas, questions, or if you just want to be a guest. And don't forget to rate our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Thanks.